What's up, wrestling fans? I'm Marcus Pierre.
And I'm David Joseph.
And this is the No Holds Barred podcast. Our mission statement is to provide reviews and our opinions on sports entertainment and professional wrestling as a whole. Now, on today's show, we're going to talk about Mount Rushmore. But before we get into that, we just want to say thank you for liking us on Facebook. Thank you for subscribing to us on iTunes and following us on SoundCloud. And also subscribing to us on YouTube as well. Without your support, we definitely wouldn't be here. So, our first topic today on the No Holds Barred podcast is Mount Rushmore. Now, as you know, Mount Rushmore is one of the most popular landmarks in the United States. It consists of George Washington, Teddy Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas Jefferson. And as you know, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they defeated the Golden State Warriors, unfortunately. But the Golden State Warriors, they walked off the court with their heads held high. Now, me and David, we collaborated and we thought it would be awesome to provide a Mount Rushmore of our own. But instead of having presidents on there, we would have NBA players, four of the greatest NBA players of all time, in our opinion. So I'm going to provide to you my list of my own version of Mount Rushmore. So if I was going to have my own Mount Rushmore of NBA players, I would definitely have Dr. J. Julius Erving. He was definitely an innovator. He's the reason why the term slam dunk was popular in basketball to begin with, because in the dunk contest that he was in, he dunked from the free throw line to the hoop. Wasn't ever seen before at that time, and he paved the way for so many dunkers. Also, he invented the no-look pass. So in my opinion, he's definitely on Mount Rushmore. Next on my Mount Rushmore, I would have Magic Johnson, because in 1981 and 1982, he led the league in the most steals, and he's 6'9", so for a 6'9" person to do that is amazing. And also, he's one of 7 basketball players to hold an NBA championship, an NCAA championship, as well as an Olympic gold medal in the Olympics. So
the old school fans, basketball fans, would love you right now. You just catering to old school, huh?
You gotta pay homage, you know. And without the originals, we wouldn't have any of the basketball players we have today.
True stuff.
Definitely have to pay tribute. Next, by far, I would definitely have Michael Jordan, one of the most marketable basketball players of all time, but also one of the most entertaining too. You know, everything he did was a charismatic move. From when he was at the free throw line, he would just sting his tongue out, or his famous Jumpman dunk that's popularized today and is done a lot but never duplicated. And also, he is the Chicago Bulls' highest scorer as well. So Michael Jordan's definitely on my list of Mount Rushmore for basketball. But last but not least, I would definitely have Kobe Bryant. As you know, Kobe Bryant scored 81 points in the basketball game. That's amazing. And also, he had one of the greatest starting lineups of all time with him, Shaq, Robert Horry, Derek Fisher, and Rick Fox. And even when they left, he proved that he could still win championships after that, and he did. So that's my Mount Rushmore basketball. David, what's yours?
Well, we're a few weeks removed from that epic collapse by the Golden State Warriors. They won 73 regular season games, the most in NBA history. And they fought hard in the playoffs, but it just seemed like in the finals they didn't have it in them.
Unfortunately.
They seemed outmatched. Kyrie did outplay Steph Curry. With all that being said, LeBron ultimately did lead his team to a ring in since like 50 plus years. It's been like 50 years since Cleveland's ever had anything to their name, and he has literally put in Cleveland on the map. That's why it may be controversial. I say LeBron James is on the Mount Rushmore.
Whoa! Wait a minute. Okay, I know he just won the ring and all. You're just gonna put him on just like that.
Yes, I will.
Oh, man.
LeBron James is on the Mount Rushmore of basketball.
That man to trade up his team and go to Miami though.
If you're an unbiased observer of basketball, if you're a casual observer of basketball, you know his resume speaks for itself. Multiple-time MVP, multiple-time champion. Just once again, let me emphasize, he got Cleveland, the city of Cleveland, on the map. He got them relevant all over again. He leaves that team, and whenever he does leave the team, they turn into a non-playoff team. He goes back there, they're automatically back in the finals. This man's been to 6 straight finals. He solidified his legacy. He is on the Mount Rushmore of basketball. Next on my list, obviously, the one and only greatest of all time, the GOAT, Michael Jordan.
Absolutely.
This man has marketability. He has off-the-charts athleticism that you can't teach. You're just born and gifted with that ability. He scored 30-plus in multiple seasons. He went 6 for 6 in the finals, Marcus. 6 for 6. For those that are good at math, you don't even need to be good at math. That's 100%.
Yeah.
You turn that fraction into a percent, that's 100%. He went perfect in the finals on the biggest stage. He has 6 rings. He has a brand of sneakers and clothing that a generation that doesn't even know him just adores and loves and will do anything for it.
The best basketball sneaker in the game right now.
Man, that just that just proves to his impact on and off the floor, and he has to be on the Mount Rushmore. Next on my list is Magic Johnson, 6'9" point guard. As Marcus said, how many 6'9" players do you know have led the league in steals? Not many. I can't think of another off the top of my head.
Me neither,
and for a 6'9" guy to be so fluid with the basketball and his ball handling and his passing, he was just so graceful to watch, and in my opinion is the greatest point guard of all time, also a multiple-time NBA champion, and he's a great NBA analyst as well. And last but not least on my NBA Mount Rushmore is Larry Legend. Yes, we are in the Boston area, the Massachusetts area, so this is for you. Larry Bird is on the Mount Rushmore of the NBA. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Do not let anybody tell you that LeBron James is a better small forward either, because Larry's the best small forward of all time, multiple-time NBA champion, created that legendary Big Three with Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale.
That's right.
And just so much knockdown, drag-out battles against the Lakers and Magic Johnson. They kind of go hand in hand. Just like without Larry, there would be no Magic Johnson. Without Magic Johnson, there would be no Larry. Just like without Stone Cold Steve Austin, there'd be no Rock. Without The Rock, there'd be no Stone Cold Steve Austin. So, with that being said, we are going to get into a WWE Mount Rushmore. And Marcus, I'm going to let you go first.
No problem. Without further ado, my Mount Rushmore, the first person I will put on my Mount Rushmore wrestling, this person doesn't get a lot of credit, but I will on mine. Bruno Sammartino has to be on Mount Rushmore.
Wow.
Absolutely. Here's why. Because he was the WWF champion.
The man that
for
wrestled
11 years.
before color was on TV?
Yeah.
Wow.
Seriously, he paved the way for so many big men in wrestling, paved the way for like Batista and John Cena and Brock Lesnar. He was an attraction. And again, they used to bump on wooden floors. No mats, no pads, wooden floors. And they would wrestle injured and continue to wrestle too. So in my opinion, Bruno is definitely on my Mount Rushmore. Next, I would definitely have Hulk Hogan. Definitely and by far the most popular wrestler in the 80s. Perhaps the most successful. I know you're a Ric Flair fan, David, but in my opinion, I feel like Hulk surpassed Ric Flair in terms of just popularity and success.
You're disrespectful.
But I'm not taking anything away from Flair.
Right,
I'm a Flair fan, but Hulk Hogan, or not to mention one of the greatest comebacks of all time. Hulking up in the ring, pointing at his opponent. Everybody was into it, and he also had a series of movies that he was successful in as well. So Hulk Hogan's on my list for that. Also, speaking of movies and wrestlers doing movies, got to put The Rock on my list for Mount Rushmore wrestling. The Rock, perhaps the best to ever go into Hollywood. He has a series of movies: Gridiron Gang, Scorpion King, Walking Tall, and right now he has a movie in theaters, Central Intelligence. I would definitely say that The Rock is just that charismatic, one of the most charismatic of all time.
Without question.
Great feuds with him and Triple H and Steve Austin. Speaking of Steve Austin, he's also on my list as well too. He's a big reason as to why the Attitude Era was so successful, as to why they beat the WCW in the Monday Night Wars. So many great moments, from spraying the McMahons with beer and having that altercation with Mike Tyson. He was just a pop culture star at that time, and Steve Austin was definitely over. So Steve Austin's also on my list, and that's my Rushmore wrestling. David, what's yours?
Well, let me get right into my list. You want to talk about pop culture stars? Look no further than the man himself, the face that runs the place, John Cena.
Okay.
Has a lot of haters, has a lot of lovers, polarizing, but no matter what arena he steps into, no matter what stadium he steps into, he garners a passionate, energetic reaction, whether you're booing him or whether you're on his side. He has done so much for the business. He has carried the company on his back for 10 plus years. If you really look at it, he's been the longest reigning face of the company of all time, in a sense, when it comes to years. So definitely, without question, has to be on there. I don't care what anybody says. And I'm going to go with the guy you just talked about, Hulk Hogan. Paved the way for people like John Cena and Hulk Hogan and The Rock. Hulk Hogan was that first real big draw that the kids could look up to, that the women could love. He had the marketability, the size, the ripping of the shirt. It just, everything he did made people go crazy. And then he had the most epic heel turn in history because he was such a powerful face.
That's right.
It made the heel turn that much more important. And he was a big part of WWE success in their good days. And he was also a big part of WCW success battling WWE and WWF. So, man, he's done a lot. He definitely has to be on anybody's Mount Rushmore, in my opinion, as much as I'm not that big of a fan. And the last two has to be the epic rivals, the best rivals of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. again, these guys helped create each other. They helped create big moments in each other's careers. They go hand in hand. They're like the perfect foil for each other's characters. Both have so many great moments in the Attitude Era, the best era of wrestling of all time.
Absolutely.
And also both have success outside the ring with Stone Cold with his Steve Austin podcast and his Broken Skull Ranch and his own beer company. And even in Hollywood, in The Rock in Hollywood, it seems like this guy's in a movie every other month.
So.
Yeah. Him and Kevin Hart. And
they work hard.
Those guys those four guys, man, I think they're just synonymous with the success of pro wrestling as a whole.
Absolutely. And we have entertaining lists, but if you found this episode entertaining, feel free to leave a comment under the video. Continue to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, we'll hold your attention.